Two heads, one tail, Young Yin. Got a new pin. Guy that I buy some of my wooden pendants from. I bought several of them at once and he sent me this pin. I'm not sure what wood it's made out of. It's possible it's plum. As a gift. I asked him. He hasn't answered yet. He also accidentally sent me this by mistake. It's called a curled or something, birch freeform. So it's made out of birch, which is actually pretty cool and significant. I offered to buy it because it meant to go to somebody else. So we'll see. Oops. All right, I'm gonna start a new page. I did a Young. Young, first line. No, Yin. Young Yin. Jesus. It's true. Here all day. Night. First time I've done this at night in like 4 readings. Thus the neighbor's son, who lives in the garage next to me in the duplex, is leaving or left right at the beginning. That's what that was about. My bad. Oh shit, I caught it with my hand. That counts. 2 tails, 1 head. Young. Now I get to write my Young line. Which I'm so excited to do, apparently. There you have it. Less talking. 3 tails. Old Yin. Hanuman incense in the background. Two tails, 1 head. Young. Three heads, old Young line. Two heads, 1 tail, Young Yin. Our bottom trigram or inner trigram is read as broken, solid, broken. And our top trigram, this is con water, broken, solid, broken. Let's read about it. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. It's actually 3:45-ish in the morning. And our top or outer trigram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is Dewey, Lake, or Marsh. Dewey is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others, and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west, and of autumn. There you go. That top one there. All right, so Dewey, Lake, or Marsh above Con water gives us a primary hexagram of 47. And our supporting hexagram will be figured out by the changing lines changing from an old yin to a young yang and an old yang to a young yin. So our bottom trigram or inner trigram will then be broken, solid, solid, and our top trigram will be solid, broken, broken. Broken, solid, solid is Xun, wind, or wood, and solid, broken, broken is Zen thunder, rather. So Xun, wind, or wood above Zen thunder is hexagram 42. The supporting hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. We will get the titles to our primary and supporting hexagrams from Lu Yiming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. 47 is exhaustion, refining body. Really nice Shiva Lingam. It's huge. Refining body and mind. Fell down another time and broke my obsidian mirror. This is it. It just fell down. If the table shakes too much, it wants to do that. It's want to do it. Refining body and mind, 47. I will show you that. There. And I will write that down with my handy dandy new pen made of mystery wood. And our supporting hexagram again, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 42 is increase, entering the Tao gradually without either rushing or lagging, increasing the positive while decreasing the negative. table too abruptly. Don't do it. I know you want to. All right, so to begin, we will look at Kibi's I Ching Tarot to get some images with these bad boys. 47 is probably somewhere around there-ish. 41, 46, 47. Kibi calls 47 oppression. Wah, wah. Boop. All right. 47. Oppression. Slow progress, going through trials, accepting difficulties. Be hindered and encounter difficulties. Even though you know it is a difficult situation, you accept it and stick to your original intention. When it's hard to be trusted with words. Looks like Donkey Kong, right? The levels, tosses the barrels down them, but with water. Or a scene from Mario 3. All right, and 42, our supporting hexagram. Kibi calls increase. Wow. Makes me think of the Four of Wands card. How they're all standing under the bough, or whatever that thing is. Arbor. It's got grapes on it. All right. 42. Increase from top to bottom, moisturize, benefit. It increases activity and adaptability, reduces the upper part, and brings benefits to the lower part. The design depicts trees and vines, wooden boat shape. I don't know if on the Four of Wands, people are getting married in that, underneath that arbor with kids running around. I don't know tarot well enough to recall. All right. Next, we will look at Hilary Barrett. That's right. At our primary hexagram, 47, what Kibi called oppression. Come on. Hilary Barrett calls 47 confined. When we approach the I Ching to consult the Oracle, the questions we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Hexagram 47, confined. Key questions. What if you could only rely on yourself? Who are you when you are alone? It's got this bird trapped in these walls. Oracle, confined, creating success, constancy of a great person, good fortune, not a mistake. There are words not trusted. The Chinese character for confined or oppressed shows a tree completely encircled by walls, an image of entrapment and isolation. You are cut off and cannot reach out to others. The great person finds good fortune in constancy to an inner ideal. This is the supreme test of character, whether you can hold to your purpose when there is no encouragement, no confirmation from outside, but only your own inner resources. The lack of outward signs of progress does not mean that you are wrong or that the world is wrong. Rather than resenting the walls, concentrate on the life and growth within them. Do not place too much value on words. They will not provide you with a way out. neither conversation nor argument nor your own reasoning and theorizing. Words alone are only circulating ideas. They lack the real personal connection that would make them trustworthy. Image, lake without water, confined. A noble one carries out the mandate, fulfills her aspiration. The lake water has all drained away into the stream below, where there might have been a sparkling center of vitality, communication, and exchange. There is no water left, no energy for communication. Even in such straits, a noble one is still active, the lake water drained downward and inward, merging with the stream in a single strong current. In the same way, a noble one lets her mandate, what she is called on to do, flow together with the aspiration of her own heart. The two strengthen one another and create an inner momentum that follows through to fulfillment. Sequence. Being confined follows from hexagram 47, pushing upward. Pushing upward and not reaching an end is naturally confining. You drive yourself upward, full of optimism, confidently expecting to reach your goal, and then you don't. And so you find yourself feeling trapped, exhausted by the climb, and also profoundly shaken and betrayed by the way things have failed to work out as they should. Pair. Confined forms a pair with hexagram 48, the well. The well is wholly connected. Confined means meeting together. By its nature, the well is already limitlessly connected. While the confined tree must reach towards the water table, reaching inward, you find help. Outwardly, the oppressive walls are unbroken, but what might the inner space open onto? And hexagram 42, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hilary Barrett calls increasing. Key questions. What would you do if you knew you were blessed? What if there were no limits? What could change for the better? Oracle, increasing, fruitful to have a direction to go, fruitful to cross the great river. The old Chinese character for increasing shows a pot filled to overflowing. It means blessing and superabundance, like the timely rain that brings a rich harvest. In our last reading, you'll recall that there was a holdup, this store of rain, hexagram 9, that there were so many clouds in the sky, which is really auspicious, but for some reason they weren't raining, small taming. But that time was soon going to come, and here we have rain coming from the clouds. Like the timely rain that brings a rich harvest, increase simply flows without limit. There is no need for restrictive frameworks to contain it, but only for tools to work with it. When you are blessed, it is good to respond with purpose and movement, participating in the increase, pouring more in, you receive more in return. Let yourself imagine where you want to be and take the first steps that commit you to going there. This is how to keep the momentum. Image, wind and thunder increasing. Picturing a bucket. So you've got this confined hexagram 47, and now you have all this water dumping into it. It's almost like, and that hexagram was calm water beneath dewy lake or marsh. So it's a lot of water in that one. Image, wind and thunder increasing. A noble one sees improvement, and so she changes. When there is excess, she corrects it. Wind and thunder are agents of change. Thunder is like the inner spark of initiative and will. Wind is a far-reaching influence in the world, free-moving because of its endless ability to shape itself to the terrain. So the noble one moves as decisively as thunder and with the versatility of the wind. She does not hold fast to a chosen direction, but responds to whatever opportunities for improvement she can see. Sequence, increasing follows from hexagram 41, decreasing. Decreasing and not reaching an end must mean increasing. Decrease is the offering, emptying out the vessel. Increase is the blessing, the pot filled to overflowing. There is the willingness to have less and make things simpler, and the willingness to receive more and become richer. Each phase leads into the other, moving in a cycle. Very curious to see the secret hexagram at the end. We have two changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here, some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Our changing lines are line 3 and 5. Boop, 3, boop, 5. So the general context of changing line 3 is an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And the general context of changing line 5 is strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Primary hexagram 47, confined, changing line 3. Confined by stones, grasping at star thistles, entering into his house, does not see his wife, pitfall. Trapped by unyielding circumstances, you reach for help from things that can only hurt you. This is so much more painful than grasping at straws. You must make the transition to a new and stronger support. Come home to a safe place, but the real partnership you need is still hidden from you. Okay. And changing line 5. Nose cut, feet cut, oppressed by the crimson sashes. Then moving slowly brings release. Fruitful to use offerings and oblations. Officials in crimson come to announce a punishment. You can no longer move independently. You lose your own sense of yourself and your value. At least you do if you accept the judgment. But what is the true extent of its power over you? Who is the ruler who invested these officials with such power? It will take time and thought for you to get free from this. Moving on slowly and gently will ensure you do not escalate the problem or get more heavily involved fighting to change things that will not change. If you cannot act directly on the source of oppression, you can still act on your own inner state and smooth over the friction in relationships by using modest offerings. There are no circumstances here you cannot change, but if you are choosing your own response, how could you be trapped? There are circumstances here you cannot change, but if you are choosing your own response, how could you be trapped? So no matter how hampered your situation is, you don't have to see things from the perspective of anyone else. Maybe the authorities hampering you. You don't have to see it that way. You may be in a tough position, but you can look at it from a different perspective entirely, which changes how your inner world relates to that situation. Now we'll read our primary and supporting hexagrams from Venerable Wen's I Ching The Oracle. 47. Blockade is what she calls it, or kun. The Oracle. Ambitions hit a wall. Feeling exhausted and worn down, you are overwhelmed, unable to cope with your feelings of entanglement. Barriers of entry to the next level of advancement. Forces cause you to become isolated, closed off, and surrounded. Obstruction of passage and progress. A state of inner oppression. In the darkness, you do not see how the restraining bonds can be broken. First, do not let external forces restrain you. Restrain yourself. Control what you can control. Cultivate an inner strength that becomes an outer strength, and you can shatter the iron hand that is otherwise holding you back. Exhausted and entangled, feelings of hardship bring on a depression. The sage subscribes to the conviction that destiny is leavened by free will and determination. Yet the sage also knows that destiny is written into the annals, and to know destiny so that one might navigate it is to consult the annals. Forecast of triumph over the hardships, auspicious for the eminent one. Truth presents itself, but there is no truth. Trust presents itself, but there is no trust. There is a message, but it is not a message. Words spoken, but there is no meaning. Sign of the sacrifice. Losses sustained for a greater good or greater subsequent success. Hexagram 47 describes one with great ambitions, but with that comes great demands. Pursuit of big rewards comes with big risks. At this particular point in time, challenges and barriers hold you back from movement forward. I just got stopped from sharing any videos to my community page because I shared too many at once. I held back for 24 hours. That hasn't happened in a while, but I must admit it has happened a time or two before. Perseverance will bring you good fortune. The etymology of the ideogram for Kun, hexagram 47, is wood, symbolic of growth and prosperity, boxed in and surrounded. This is the chi force that besieges with difficulties. When hexagram 47 comes up, increase wood chi in your surroundings. The trigram thunder is also utilized in metaphysical measures to counteract the blockade. When the fifth line of hexagram 47 is changed from yang to yin, the hexagram becomes 40 G, meaning to release the tension and untie the knots. That upper trigram transformation is from lake to thunder. Likewise, hexagram 47, so if you're working with the energy of these things, to counteract this whole hexagram, all you need is the energy of the trigram for thunder, which is Zen thunder. It's at the bottom of this, right? We transformed into Zen thunder on top when we got our supporting hexagram, so that's awesome. Come on. It's the first one. That's Zen thunder right there. That's what you need. Solution to counteract the blockade. All right. That upper trigram transformation is from lake to thunder. Likewise, hexagram 47 was traditionally used in baneful magic to blockade someone and prevent that person from achieving prosperity or advancement. That's not very nice. Can we all just get along? Nobody better be using hexagram 47 to blockade anybody, unless it's absolutely called for, right? Okay, hexagram 42, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. The Oracle, a state of increase and expansion, as she calls it, burgeoning, B-U-R-G-E-O-N-I-N-G, or Yi. A state of increase and expansion, opportunities come knocking. As you gain, ensure that others gain. What you receive, you must give. That is the only way to ensure further increase and ascent. Time is of the essence in the matter. Your window of opportunity will not remain open for long. The time for increase and ascent is now. Accept the challenge, rise to the occasion. Never lose your kindness. You know you are aligned with heaven's will when what you seek for yourself will in turn benefit the collective and achieve a greater good. Thunder incites a new development and wind disperses it, giving it momentum, a state of increase and expansion. The image of burgeoning is a vessel with water overflowing. A sage learns honor from the honorable and honor from the corrupt. Learn beneficence from the beneficent and beneficence from the malicious. Here's the translation of this oft-quoted proverb. When sages see the good of others, they are inspired to be better, and when they see the fault of others, they correct that fault in themselves. Auspicious to cross the great stream. Heed those words, and the gods will bless you with ever-increasing and overflowing prosperity. Yi is a symbol for the prosperous and ever-continuing flow of growth, gains, benefits, profit, and affluence. But everybody mad at you and blockading you in. I mean, those tend to go together, right? Don't they? Seems accurate. Okay, so our changing lines are next, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Being in command of grabbing a bunch of thorns, it sounds like. Because that's what Hilary Barrett said of changing line 3. We will see what Ben Bill Wynn says. Handful of thorns, and you know you've missed it. You lose your love when you say the word mine. But love is a rose, if anybody knows that song. God, my mom used to sing that. My mom and dad were in a band together. It was called Sunrise. Sonrise. Yeah, Christian band. But they sounded like Peter, Paul, and Mary. You should check them out. My dad, on his channel, maybe I'll link my dad's channel. I think he has all of their music you could listen to, of their first album, I believe. If anyone wants to know exactly who I am, that would be one way of doing it. Yeah. All right. Hexagram 47, blockade. Don't be throwing no blockades at me, I'll tell you. Don't you do it. Increase is coming. Third line. All right. Trapped among the high rocks, a rugged rocky terrain, surrounded by thorns and thistles. Returning, man enters his palace, but cannot find his wife. It is foreboding. You are overwhelmed, unable to cope with your feelings of entanglement. There is indecisiveness in the face of what you see as your adversity, yet you are being oppressed by that which is not oppressive. The man symbolizes logic, reason, and rationality. The wife symbolizes emotional expression, intuition, and spiritual understanding. You are not trusting your intuitions, or you are not in control of your emotions. The third line narrates the story of a man who is trapped atop a steep crag or cliff and then finds himself surrounded by thorns, making it even more difficult to extricate himself from the predicament. Finally, he manages to free himself, so he returns home to his estate, but he cannot find his wife. The implication is of further misfortune. The meaning of the story is one experiencing adversity after adversity, each one different yet possibly related to the previous, unable to catch a break. The wife not being home has led to two different interpretations. It can be interpreted as you having to help yourself because there's no one you can depend on for support. Another interpretation is that the wife has been kidnapped, her whereabouts unknown, and now you have to undertake an investigative adventure. This might represent the loss of something valuable to you that now you need to retrieve. Not an auspicious forecast. Outlook in the matter at hand isn't great. Challenges ahead if one undertakes the endeavor contemplated. Perhaps it's better to stay home and keep safe. Travel and risky journeys are ill-advised at this time. If your divinatory result is the third line, it could be an indication that extenuating forces beyond your control, or that you have been maliciously cast onto you. Or that, God in heaven, I'm going to read that a line again. If your divinatory result is the third line, it could be an indication that extenuating forces beyond your control, or that have been maliciously cast onto you, are causing stagnation in your progress. To remove the blockage, counteract that baneful force. We have hexagram. No. Trigram thunder. Zen thunder. That is what's supposed to counteract that. I'm gonna read Zen thunder right here and now. Put some counteract to that. Right quick and in a hurry. Zen thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the Trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. We'll counteract for everybody. Counteract it. There you go. You're welcome. All right. Changing line 5. Fifth line. Cutting off the nose, cutting off the feet. Bound by the vermilion sash. Speak with poise, calm and steady, a quiet tone, and thus shall there be progress. Favors granted after the ceremonial offering. You have been wronged and you feel alone. No one will hear your appeal. A divine intervention is needed. The 5 punishments of imperial China were tattooing the face, cutting off the nose, cutting off the feet, castration, and execution. 2 of the 5, cutting off the nose and cutting off the feet, are stated here. Cutting off the nose was symbolic of loss in social status and condemning one to lifelong bad fortune. The nose represented one's luck. Cutting off the feet was punishment for stealing, trespassing, treason, or sedition. The vermilion sash was worn by officials of the king or government upon which they'd hang their seals. To be bound by the vermilion sash could mean feeling the restrictive consequences of law and policy, institutional or systemic influences. Or it could mean you are the one who is carrying such a seal, and now you are feeling bound by your status and position. Recall the foreshadowing in the second line where the vermilion sash reference first appeared. There it was suggested that punishment might be imminent. The narrative progresses to this point of the 5th line, the climax, where indeed there has been a sentencing, 2 of the 5 punishments no less. Guilty or innocent, justified or unjustified, you've been punished, or you feel like you're being punished. You're feeling confined by the situation at hand. Appeal your case and save yourself through discussion, negotiation, and keeping your tone quiet and calm. Stay composed and have poise. Additionally, G means to go before the altar with offerings and ceremony to petition the spirits for help. Your petition will be answered. Divine intervention may be the only way out of the situation. This ideograph is the image of an altar and a hand with a piece of meat as an offering coming before the altar in ceremony. C means both to sacrifice and to venerate. Here are these ideographs I'll show you. Highly recommended to go before the altar and petition through sacrifice. I don't know how you're going to do that without any nose or feet. I guess you still have hands, so can't complain too much. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. All right, who else? We're going Liu I-ming's Taoist, I Ching. He was a Taoist adept, and he wrote this in 1796. It's quite alchemical in nature. Exhaustion. Exhaustion develops the righteous. Great people are fortunate and blameless. If one complains, one will not be trusted. Explanation. Exhaustion means reaching an impasse. In the body of the hexagram below is water, in which one yang is fallen in between 2 yins. Above is lake, in which 1 yin is on top of 2 yangs. Both picture mundanity making inroads on the celestial, so that celestial energy does not come through. Therefore, it is called exhaustion. You could think of this as Kundalini energy being trapped in your body. And I only say that because the last hexagram we got, the last primary hexagram we got from the last reading, James DeCorn was saying that one of the titles could be Kundalini, who is the heaven or the dynamic. Therefore, it is called exhaustion. As for the qualities of the hexagram, from the midst of danger, water, it produces joy, lake. Joy comes out of danger. So it also has the sense of resolving exhaustion, resolving an impasse. This hexagram represents polishing and refining body and mind. It follows on the previous hexagram, gathering. Gathering involves attaining joy by accord, whereby one gathers together the medicines, goes back to the fundamental, and returns to the original. But if one can only gather in ease and cannot gather in difficulty, this is still inability to accord, inability to rejoice. People who try to practice the Tao can all keep steadfast when they are in easy circumstances, but many of them waver in determination when they are in difficult or perilous situations, when they have no nose or feet. For instance, they may change their minds because of the pressures of making a living, or they may slack in determination due to illness. Their spirits may flag because of old age, or they may stop work because of obstruction by some obsession. All these are cases in which people do not exert the mind of Tao and are hindered by exhaustion. So they ultimately do not attain the Tao. Michael Mead had a video today, a podcast. I'll link it in the description box below as well. He was talking about how hope comes with the feeling of defeat or hopelessness, which is a very non-dual way you could describe that, because everything has its opposite bound to it, if you want to describe it that way. And he was saying that with hope, sometimes when we hope so much on something, its shadow side, when we fail to reach that thing in the time that we think we should reach it, that it changes its face to despair or hopelessness. And that's kind of the danger of putting too much hope in situations, very specific situations. And his recommendation was to bring it back from the future into the present moment and create a kind of way that you live where hope is built into it. When you have a passion that you're living for instance, is what he was describing, or you have somehow in your vision that has some flexibility in it, you are imbued with hope just through being in the moment and living and being excited about doing what you're doing, for instance, or your honoring of your calling. Maybe I would say that that's kind of what he said about that. If the mind is not exhausted, even though the body be exhausted, the path is not at an impasse, even though the situation presents an impasse. That also is similar to what Benabel Wen was saying, is that if it's up to you, then how are you really stuck? And also, it mattered that when you were trapped and confined, that you turn inward and have a change of perspective, and so that you may be outwardly trapped, but you're not inwardly trapped. If the mind is not exhausted, even though the body be exhausted, the path is not at an impasse, even though the situation presents an impasse. And one can be joyful even when in difficulty. Then there is a developmental aspect within exhaustion. But even though being able to rejoice even in difficulty is something people cannot fully attain, and there will inevitably be a point of exhaustion, nevertheless, if they become exhausted where they should not, they will not attain development. This is because the developmental aspect of exhaustion lies in being correct. Dealing with exhaustion correctly, growing correctly, while exhausted, one goes along in harmony with the time. Going along in harmony with the time is possible only for great people imbued with the quality of correct balance. Great people, while being very wise, appear to be ignorant. While being very skillful, they appear inept. Random thoughts do not occur to them, and they cannot be influenced by circumstances. Their conduct is unaffected, and they are not concerned with externals. Not only do they find good fortune wherever they are, they also accord with the order of life and are blameless. As for those whose main concern is food and clothing, they are untrustworthy in an impasse. They will take trouble in hopes of fortune, but as soon as things don't go their way, they show it in their words and expressions, complaining against heaven and blaming people. So blame goes along with them. How can this bring good fortune? Those who deal with exhaustion and impasse rightly, who are able to be joyful even in difficulty, are great people. Those who are untrustworthy in an impasse, who take trouble only to please themselves, are petty people. It may be the same trouble and the same joy, but the distinction lies in how great people and petty people relate to the trouble and the joy. So those who practice the Tao should by all means maintain rectitude when exhausted and at an impasse. I got this pain in my back. I shared a video from, I think it's called Artificially Aware, but they put together these philosophical videos, and one of them had to do with this guy who, okay, we're going to supporting Hexagram 42 right now, but you're also getting a story. Yeah, he wrote comics and he identified with the character, and he had all of his readers masturbate all on the same day and think of a specific outcome, basically, when they came, right? And basically, what he was trying to get is to get the series to go on because they wanted to cut it off or something like that. And sure as shit, it worked. Like, he got several more series. But maybe I'll link this in the description box below as well. That way you can find it. Anyway, it had a reverse effect. And that reverse effect was that he wrote into the scenario for his main character of his comic book that the guy had some illness, like a flesh-eating illness. And this guy contracted some crazy illness that he almost died from. And somehow he reversed it. It's because he wrote into his comic that this guy miraculously healed and ended up with this, you know, fine woman and stuff. And all that stuff, it didn't work for him. He came back and married some fine-ass woman. And, yeah. So I had said, I kept talking about this sage. Now I'm not going to remember his name. But this guy got a limp. And it's because he helped the people build a bridge across this flood zone, and they dealt with the flooding in a way. But limping, here it's this guy. He could transform into a bear in, you know, that lore. But his name is You the Great. I'll read this. The hero who conquered the floods toiled for years to build dikes and dredge rivers and was left with a limp. But he succeeded in the end because of what he did differently, enlisting the help of people and spirits and honoring the flow of the water. I brought up a relation to that in this other reading. Jacob and wrestling with the angel and developing a limp. And then right after that reading, I think it's my third disc. I had a basically compressed disc and some of that cartilage, I can't remember what they call it, like a hernia or something, I don't know what it is, forgotten. Compressed disc. Yeah, and anyway, man, I had to be out of work for 3 months and I couldn't find a comfortable position. I had my leg hanging off the couch. I had to lay on the couch with my body and just hang my leg and that part of my hip over off the side of the couch to even be remotely comfortable. I felt like I had to hold on to the earth because I was in so much pain. This time around, and that was like a year or two ago, it came back right after that reading where it was a lot of pain, couldn't feel the front part of my right calf. And I was like, man, am I doing that same thing? You know, you think about the influence that you have and how flippant we are with our words and everything. But when you think of it in terms of manifesting, if you want to call it that, and how something becomes more powerful, the more people are, witness to it, saturates into collective unconscious. And so it's very important what we put out there. And if you think about what we influence others with, how that might come back around to us, and what kind of things do we want, and are we, feeding people things that's nourishing, put it that way. Our supporting hexagram 42 increase. Our supporting hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 42 increase. For increase, it is beneficial to go somewhere. It is beneficial to cross great rivers. Explanation, increase is adding what is lacking. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is wind, entering, and below is thunder, active. Acting so as to enter gradually. Entering without either rushing or lagging, it is therefore called increase. So I'll say, if anybody wants to throw me some well wishes to my back, I would love you long time, if you know what I mean. Very much appreciate anybody that would be willing to, do a ritual for me or throw up some magic words or a prayer or something like that would be great. Very much appreciated. This hexagram represents using reduction in the midst of increase. It follows on the previous hexagram, liberation. In liberation, the yang energy is active and gets out of danger. gradually growing and maturing, adding good that is lacking. However, to increase good is not possible without reducing what is not good, increasing good and decreasing what is not good, increasing and increasing again, reducing and reducing again, until there is no more increase or decrease possible. Finally reaching the state of utter good without evil, one is then done. Therefore, it is beneficial to go somewhere. Since beginningless time, people have accumulated faults and defects and the seeds of habitual compulsion growing deeper as time goes on. Now, if they want to do something of benefit to essence in life, they cannot accomplish this unless they first extract the seeds of these compulsive habits. But the seeds of habitual compulsions cannot be removed all at once. There are processes, procedures. This does not admit falsehood. It requires orderly progress, putting forth effort at every step, increasing the mind of Tao, decreasing the human mentality, increasing sane energy, decreasing aberrated energy. Only when there is such reduction within increase is it possible to succeed, to make it beneficial to go somewhere. The benefit is simply in one's practice producing beneficial phenomena. But to practice what is beneficial, it is important to have a beginning and a conclusion. If there is a beginning but no conclusion, one's acts are still of no benefit. There is no gain, but loss. Therefore, the way of gain and beneficial action lies in concentrated will, making thoroughly dedicated effort, made from within difficulty and hardship. Only when one has dissolved the seeds of compulsive habit of time immemorial will one be able to restore one's original being. Therefore, it is also beneficial to cross great rivers. Great rivers are extremely dangerous. There, one's life hangs in the balance. You, the great, cross the great river, right? If one can go through extremely dangerous places, then wherever there is no danger, one is at an advantage. According to the qualities of the hexagram, acting so as to progress harmoniously, gradually applying effort, without rushing or lagging, this is the path of increasing and decreasing according to the time. I forgot to read the commentary section for our primary hexagram, so let's do that. Let's read each of the hexagrams again, but through the commentary section. 47. I used to do it this way all the time. And then I was like, why don't I just put the text section and the commentary section of the primary hexagram together and then do the same with the other ones so it's not jumping around as much. But didn't do that this time. Commentary section for primary hexagram 47. Exhaustion. Lake above, water below. Again, this is our primary hexagram. A lake with no water is exhausted. Therefore, superior people use life to the full and achieve their aim. Exhaustion means coming to an end. Above is lake, below is water. This is the lake leaking, the water flowing away so that there is no water in the lake. This is the image of exhaustion. What superior people see in this is that just as a lake without water is empty, when people lack purpose, their path is at an end. Therefore, they use life to the full to achieve their aim. There is a life that consists of a quantity of energy, and there is a life that consists of meaning of the Tao. The life that is a quantity of energy is created by the universe and is conditioned. The life of meaning of the Tao creates the universe and is primordial. The primordial life is fundamentally something celestial, associated with heaven. Because of mixture with acquired conditioning, it enters the realm of earth and changes into water. This is the one yang in the center of water. Once this celestial yang falls, the jewel of life is hidden and the whole body is completely mundane. There is no exhaustion more exhausting than this. All that language about water and earth and heaven is the trigrams. Using life to the full means to get to the end of conditioned life. A Achieving one's aim means to achieve the primordial life. Establishing this aim to use life to the full, using life to the full to achieve this aim, while the amount of energy depends on something else, creating life depends on oneself. Using the temporal to restore the primordial, ending false life and establishing real life, producing being in the midst of nothingness, seeking life within death, getting through an exhausting impasse is like a lake without water, again being filled with water. Yes, please. And supporting hexagram, commentary section, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence and direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 42, increase, wind above, thunder below. Wind and thunder increase. Thus do superior people take to good when they see it and correct whatever faults they have. Increase is augmentation and enhancement. Above is wind and below is thunder. This is wind and thunder meeting. When thunder rolls, wind rises. The sound of wind enhances the thunder. This is the image of increase. Venabil Wen said the answer to the blockade of hexagram 47 was thunder, the trigram thunder. And here it says that thunder is enhanced, or the sound of wind enhances thunder. So our supporting hexagram is already kind of a remedy, so to speak, to the inauspiciousness of hexagram 47. What superior people see in this is that to increase goodness, so think of that alchemically when I read this. Think about the energy of the two things, a blockade versus an enhanced sound of thunder by the wind. Or it says the sound of wind enhances the thunder. Gotcha. Anywho's. Increase requires reduction. Reduction complements increase. I'm going to start over from the beginning of that paragraph. What superior people see in this is that to increase goodness, it is necessary to reduce faults. And to reduce faults, it is necessary to increase goodness. Increase requires reduction. Reduction complements increase, so the increase has no end. Therefore, when they see good, they take to it. And when they have faults, they correct them. One thing I will say about having this back pain is that it actually makes me sensitive to when my inner state feels stressed or imbalanced. And I've noticed a correlation between my back pain and stress. And so it's made me kind of like hyper fixated on maintaining a balance at all times. I'll get agitated at my son, picking him up at school, and I'm telling him to get in the car, and I'm hobbling around, you know what I mean, with back pain. This is the incense I was telling you about. Hanuman. And he goes climbing up these stairs instead. Like, he's kind of hyperactive, at the very least, and kind of like a Mowgli character. And I just want him to, live his life and have a good time, but also there's traffic and me hobbling around like a you the Great. And so I get agitated, and then I notice that, oh my gosh, now my back hurts so much. And I've never correlated that before. So it's kind of an interesting, positive side effect in an alchemical flavor. When people are first born, they are totally good without evil. That is, goodness is inherent in people, while faults are originally non-existent in people. It is because they are unaware of good that they have faults. If they take to good when they see it and continue to move toward goodness until there is nothing they do that is not good, they will end up at ultimate good. If they correct faults they have and keep correcting them until there is nothing faulty in them, they will finally become impeccable. Taking to good means being able to be firm. Correcting faults means being able to be flexible. Firmness must be like the powerful, direct action of thunder. Flexibility must be like the gentle, gradual advance of wind. Being vigorous, one can enter into goodness. Being easygoing, one can be without fault. Firmness and flexibility complement each other. What was there before returns, and what occurred later disappears. The primal is restored, and the acquired dissolves. By this enhancement, one reaches ultimate good with no evil, the stage of complete integration with the celestial design. So the work of taking to good and correcting faults is no small matter. Got this incense out and then didn't even light it. Okay. And then the commentary section of our supporting hexagram, right? No. That was our supporting hexagram. All right. Great. Just give me a second. I don't know. I don't trust my memory. Apologies. Just hit the forward 10 seconds. You'll be fine. Increase is no small matter. Yeah. Jeez, I only thought we read one. Did we read the commentary section for 47? I hear everyone saying, yes. Yes. A lake without water, again being filled with water. Thank you. Okay. Now we need to read the changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here's some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context in emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Can't say it isn't entertaining this time, I will say that. Are you not entertained? Very far from the real deal. Okay. 47. Changing line 3. I know the neighbor's son is not. Changing line 3. Let's get serious. It's about to get nose chop-offy. Stymied by rocks, resting on thorns, going into the house without seeing the wife, inauspicious. Changing line, I already said all that, right? Yeah. Yep. Explanation. When one is ignorant and acts arbitrarily, not knowing enough to honor teachers and respect companions, one will be despised by upright people. This is like being stymied by rocks, resting on thorns, getting into an impasse by one's own doing. People like this have no real learning, but they pretend to have attained the Tao. They strive for externals and lose what is within. This is also like going into the house but not seeing the wife. After all, they will perish. These are people who exhaust themselves unnecessarily, creating an impasse where there really is none. All right. There's this time I was a landscaper and I was walking in front of everybody carrying all this stuff back at the shop, and I just tripped out of nowhere, and it's because the laces from one of my boots caught on the lace hook thing on the top of the boot, the metal piece, but it just looked like I tripped over thin air, and I dropped the shovels and rakes and shit, and everybody cracked up. But that's what that makes me think of, tripping over your own shit. There's nothing there. And changing line 5, nose and feet cut off at an impasse In minister's garb, gradually there will be joy. It is beneficial to make ceremonial offerings. Explanation. When positive strength is balanced correctly, but one does not meet an enlightened ruler who will employ one, one has great ability, but not the opportunity to use it. It is difficult to carry out both spiritual and temporal work, and one cannot do as one wishes, like having one's nose and feet cut off, at an impasse in minister's garb. This is the great impasse of those who embrace Tao. Once in an impasse, they cannot forcibly seek a way out. They should dress themselves in humility and hide their treasure. Suffer alone and work alone. Then gradually there will be joy. The benefit of gradual joy is like making ceremonial offerings. Entering with sincerity. After a long time of deepening one's attainment, a time will naturally come when the great Tao is fulfilled. This is fidelity in an impasse, gradually getting out of the impasse. All right. Next, we will look at James DeCorn's Gnostic Book of Changes. I've left links to this in the description box below. He didn't have it published, and so he's just left it on his site for people to look up. And he's made it accessible in PDF form, so you could even print it out if you wanted to. But the beauty is that he has compiled several of the top English I Ching translations and just lumped them all in here. You know, they're not messy, but kind of a lot to go through. But it shows you really succinctly a lot of different perspectives in machine gun order or fire. And anyway, he is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he quotes people like Carl Jung and things like the Kabbalah, and he also does a helpful summation at the end. Like I said, link in the description box below if you want to follow along. 47, our primary hexagram, he calls oppression. Other titles might be exhaustion, the symbol of repression and confinement, adversity, weariness, confining, entangled, hardship, depression, tiresome restriction, dried up. A quote from D.F. Hook, actions speak louder than words, judgment, leg. Oppression means that successful progress is still possible. The perseverance of the truly great man brings good fortune without error, but if he relies on words, no one will believe them. Wilhelm/Baines, oppression, success, perseverance, the great man brings about good fortune, no blame. When one has something to say, it is not believed. Blofeld, adversity leading to success thanks to persistence in a righteous course. Good fortune for the truly great and freedom from error. Though words be spoken, they will not inspire confidence. Great refers to high moral qualities. This hexagram is of evil omen for most people, but success can be won through tremendous persistence in doing what is right. Ritzema/Karcher, confining, growing, trial, great people significant, without fault, possessing words not trustworthy. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of restriction and distress. It emphasizes that turning inward through accepting enclosure is the adequate way to handle it. The image, leg, an abyss beneath the marsh that drains its water, the image of oppression. The superior man will sacrifice his life to attain his purpose. Wilhelm/Baines, or wake up the neighbor's son. There's no water in the lake, the image of exhaustion. Thus, the superior man stakes his life on following his will. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes a marsh in which no water appears. The superior man risks his life to carry out his will. Ritzema/Karcher, marsh without stream, confining. A chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses involving fate to release purpose. We already read Cleary 1, so I'm not going to do that again. Cleary 2, developed people accomplish their will by living out their destiny. Developed people only live out their destiny. They do not willingly try to avoid following it and accepting it. Being strong and balanced, they are able to be joyful even in danger. This is the will that is up to oneself. Developed people intend to accomplish their will and do not vacillate just because they run into problems. Yeah. I'll read Clary 1 as well, because that looks great. A lake with no water is exhausted, therefore superior people use life to the full and achieve their aim. When people lack purpose, their path is at an end, therefore they use life to the full to achieve their aim. Using life to the full means to get to the end of conditioned life. Achieving one's aim means to achieve primordial life. Using the temporal to restore the primordial, ending false life and establishing real life. Producing being in the midst of nothingness, seeking life within death, getting through an exhausting impasse is like a lake without water again being filled with water. And Wu, the marsh has no water, this is hardship. Thus the Junsi, or chief son or superior person, is prepared to dedicate his life to fulfill his commitments. A marsh devoid of water is like a man deprived of his intellectual pursuits. This is unacceptable to a Junsi. He would rather fight to the end than surrender to idiocy. Commentary. Confucius/Lake. In oppression, we see the dynamic lines covered and obscured by the magnetic. We see the attribute of perilousness in the lower trigram going on to cheerfulness in the upper. Who but the superior man is still able to advance, although straitened by circumstances? The central position of the dynamic lines explains the good fortune of the great man who is firm and correct. As regards speech-making, to be fond of argument or persuasion is the way to be reduced to extremity. Leg. The written Chinese character of oppression presents us with the picture of a tree within an enclosure. A plant, according to Williams, fading for want of room. A tree, according to Tai Tung, not allowed to spread its branches. The image conveys the idea of being straitened and distressed, and the hexagram indicates how skillful management may relieve it. The two central places in the figure are occupied by dynamic lines, but line 2 is confined between 1 and 3, which are magnetic, and line 5, the ruler, as well as 4, his minister, are covered by the magnetic 6th line. These conditions indicate the repression of good men by adversity. The Konghasi editors imply that actions and not words are what are required in the case. Perilousness is the attribute of the lower trigram, and cheerfulness that of the upper. The superior man, no matter how straitened, remains master of himself and pursues his principled intent. The idea of speech-making is found in the upper trigram, one of the attributes of which is the mouth, or speech, as well as pleased satisfaction. The pleading of the oppressed party still tries to make others pleased with him. Literally translated, the first sentence of the image reads, "A marsh with no water is oppression." Chu Hsi says, "The water descending and leaking away, the marsh above will become dry." Anthony, our belief in the ruling power as beneficial is shaken by doubt. This lack of steadfastness is a problem because it obstructs acceptance and its corrective power. We often receive this hexagram when we feel tired. The oppressiveness of doubt exhausts our inner resources. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. With enough will, success can be won. Actions speak louder than words, i.e., the answer lies beyond the realm of reason and logic. Intuition furthers. The superior man stakes everything he's got on his will to succeed. In oppression, we have the image of a dry lake bed. Anyone who has ever seen alkali flats in the desert can easily understand this metaphor for oppression. Almost nothing can live in such an environment. The following hexagram, the well, is an upside-down image of oppression, depicting the opposite case of an unending source of nourishment flowing from deep beneath the surface of the earth. A comparison of these two figures will reveal a great deal about the meaning of each. To be under oppression, then, is to be cut off from all sustenance. Although there is water down below, it is presently inaccessible, and there is no nourishing flow of inner forces to the surface. This is a common, inevitable, and potentially defeating experience for anyone doing serious inner work. A quote from Thomas Cleary in the Taoist I Ching. People who try to practice the Tao can all keep steadfast when they are in easy circumstances, but many of them waver in determination when they are in difficult or perilous situations. They may change their minds because of the pressures of making a living, or they may slack in determination due to illness. Their spirits may flag because of old age, or they may stop work because of obstruction by some obsession. All these are cases in which people do not exert the mind of Tao and are hindered by exhaustion, so they ultimately do not attain the Tao. Obviously, this is a dangerous situation, and we are told how to cope with it in the Confucian commentary, where it is observed that the lower trigram of peril goes on to the upper trigram of cheerfulness. These two trigrams are found in reversed sequence in hexagram number 60, restrictive regulations, where a cheerful attitude is described as absolutely essential for the furtherance of the work. The observations made there also apply here, and we see the superior man thereby enabled to advance under conditions that would utterly defeat lesser individuals. This cheerfulness cannot be underestimated. When it comes naturally and isn't forced, it is a gift of grace. Suddenly one is enabled to face the most incredible hardships with a light heart. It isn't that you no longer care, you still do the best you can to further the work, but you do it with bemused detachment. Quote from C. Ponce in Kabbalah, "The one thing the Jewish mystics never lost sight of was the suffering experienced in the arena of the profane. They did not retreat from this suffering, but sought instead to find meaning in it by living it. This is the core of mysticism. The temple in which the sacred marriage takes place is the world." Lines 2 and 5 specifically mention sacrifice, an important concept in the I Ching. Changing line 5 is one that we got. And 3. Sacrifice is mentioned in lines 17:6, 45:2. So this is first, the hexagram is the first number, and then the second number is the line in that hexagram where it's mentioned. So 17:6 is hexagram 17, changing line 6. 45:2, 46:2, 46:4, 47:2, 47:5, 63:5, and in the judgment of hexagram 20. Note that in each case, sincerity is specifically cited as essential to success. Sincere, from the dictionary, 1, marked by genuineness as a free of dissimulation, not hypocritical, real, true, honest. Very often, the sincerity of our sacrifices involves following the dictates of the work, whether we fully understand them or not. Much that takes place in the work is incomprehensible to ego consciousness. For example, changes often occur within the psyche which we only experience as strange dreams. The only dream I remember recently is driving around with my son, and I was almost like unconscious driving. And yet it was just a chill little time, but I don't remember like being able to turn my head. It's like I was sleeping in the driver's seat or something, and we were just like going in on a little mission and having a cute little father-son trip and like getting home safely and all of that. It was like being led by the subconscious, or like the intuition furthering, right? Interesting. Okay. Much that takes place in the work is incomprehensible to ego consciousness. For example, changes often occur within the psyche which we only experience as strange dreams. Yet somehow, perhaps months later, we suddenly realize that we no longer act in a certain way or have lost interests in something that used to be of compelling importance. Our sacrifices are necessary for these changes to take place, even if they don't immediately make sense to us. A quote from the Bhagavad Gita, "With sacrifice shall you nourish the gods, and may the gods nourish you. Thus, nourishing one another, you will obtain the highest good. The gods, nourished by sacrifice, will bestow on you the enjoyments you desire. He is verily a thief who enjoys the things that they give without offering to them anything in return." Each of Cleary's Taoist 1 and Buddhist 2 commentaries provides valuable insights into how much courage is required to follow the dictates of the work at its more advanced levels. Take comfort that others before you have persevered and survived. Developed people accomplish their will by living out their destiny. our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hexagram 42, increase. Other titles might be the symbol of addition, gain, augmenting, help from above, benefit, advantage, profit, expansion. Judgment leg. Increase denotes advantage in every movement which shall be undertaken. It will be advantageous even to cross the great stream. Wilhelm/Baines. Increase. It furthers one to undertake something. It furthers one to cross the great water. Blowfold. Gain. It is favorable to have in view some goal or destination and to cross the great water or stream or sea. Lu. Increase. It is of benefit to set forth. It is of benefit to cross the great water. Ritzema/Karcher. Augmenting, harvesting, possessing directed going, harvesting, wading the great river. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of increase and advance. It emphasizes that expanding the quantity and quality of your involvement is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to augment. Wu. Gain indicates an advantage in having undertakings and in crossing a big river. The image. Leg. Wind over thunder. The image of increase. When the superior man perceives good, he moves toward it. When he perceives his faults, he eliminates them. Wilhelm/Baines. Wind and thunder. The image of increase. Thus, the superior man, if he sees good, he imitates it. If he has faults, he rids himself of them. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes wind and thunder. The superior man, seeing what is good, imitates it. Seeing what is bad, he corrects it. Lu. Wind and thunder symbolize increase. When the superior man discovers good, he follows it. When he has errors, he corrects them. Ritzema/Karcher. Wind, thunder, augmenting. A Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses visualizing improvement, by consequence shifting. A Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses possessing excess, by consequence amending. Wu. Wind and thunder make gain. Thus, when the Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, sees a good deed, he improves his own at once. When he realizes he is making a mistake, he corrects it at once. Commentary. Confucius/Lake. Increase shows the upper trigram brilliantly decreased to augment the lower. What descends from above reaches to all below, and the satisfaction of the people is without limit. Advantage in movement is shown and the blessing is dispensed by the second and fifth lines from their correct positions. The action of wood shows that it is advantageous to cross the great stream. Through the trigrams of movement and humility, there is unlimited daily advancement. Heaven dispenses and earth produces, and all proceeds according to the requirements of the time. Leg. Increase has the opposite meaning to hexagram number 41, compensating sacrifice or decrease. What King Wen had in mind was a ruler or a government operating to dispense benefits to the people and increase their resources. The two important lines in the figure are the correlates 2 and 5. The general auspice of the hexagram is one of being successful in one's enterprises and of overcoming the greatest difficulties. The formation of the trigrams here is the reverse of that in the preceding hexagram. The people are full of pleasure in the labors of the ruler for their good. The action of wood in the Confucian commentary refers to the upper trigram, which is the symbol of wind and wood. From wood, boats are made on which the great stream may be crossed. In 3 hexagrams, this 59 or some completely random birch freeform thingy that guy sent me, which I hope I get to keep. I'm just gonna be like, if you don't accept the same that you're asking, I'll double it, triple it. I won't accept no for an answer. The action of wood in the Confucian commentary refers to the upper trigram, which is the symbol of wind and wood. From wood, boats are made on which the great stream may be crossed. Birch, I had this whole thing on birch, and maybe I'll put the shorts in there of that, on a whole hexagram where I read a bunch of different sources of people talking about birch fairies and the birch tree and kind of the spiritual implications or meanings of birch. And one of them was community. So I thought that was really Pretty cool. And that's kind of what I use birch to symbolize for me. Like co-creations. Feel cheesy saying that, I don't know why. That's the thing that makes me feel cheesy, right? Out of all the stuff I can feel cheesy for, that one thing, and that alone. The formation of, it's my Achilles heel. The formation of the trigrams here, the formation of the trigrams here is the reverse of that in the preceding hexagram. The people are full of pleasure in the labors of the ruler for their good. The action of wood in the Confucian commentary. We read that part, man. Come on, get your head in the game. From wood, boats are made on which the great stream may be crossed. In 3 hexagrams, this, 59, and 61, in which this is the upper trigram, we find mention made of crossing the great stream. In the image, thunder and wind are seen to increase one another, and their combination gives the idea of increase. Notes and paraphrases judgment. Take advantage of your opportunities. The superior man recognizes his duty and rectifies his mistakes. Or, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. If the ego's sacrifices for the good of the work are described in the previous hexagram, here we see the inverse image of that figure in which it is the self who bestows its blessings upon the psyche. The one implies the other. In the words of an old blues lyric, if you don't put something in, you can't get nothing out. The 41st and 42nd hexagrams are intimately related, and in their interaction portray the active progress of the work. To paraphrase the last sentence of the Confucian commentary, the self dispenses and the ego produces, and all proceeds according to the requirements of the time. A quote from Maimonides, Maimonides, if a man continually weighs his actions and aims at the mean, he is in the highest of human ranks. In that way, he will come close to God and will attain what belongs to him. This is the most perfect of the ways of worship. So the gods are in favor, and we should definitely be performing a sacrifice of some sort and appealing, as it were, for help, be it that our changing lines don't have quite as much good news completely in all aspects. And the changing lines put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context. Come on, baby. An emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 5, the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 3 of hexagram 47. Leg. The third line, magnetic, shows its subject straightened before a frowning rock. He lays hold of thorns. He enters his palace and does not see his wife. There will be evil. Wilhelm means a man permits himself to be oppressed by stone and leans on thorns and thistles. He enters his house and does not see his wife. Misfortune. Blofeld, faced by rock-like difficulties and with naught to lean upon but thistles and briars. He entered his dwelling but could not find his wife. Misfortune. This line may be taken to presage insuperable difficulties. The word wife does not necessarily have any special application to our case, as can be seen from the commentary on the line. Lu. The man is oppressed by stone. He sits on thorns and thistles. When he enters his home, he cannot find his wife. Misfortune. One should be prepared to meet with insult or difficulty. Wurzel/Karcher. Confined, tending toward petrification. Seizing, tending towards star thistles. Entering, tending towards one's house. Not visualizing one's consort, pitfall. Consort and wife are two distinctly different things, I do believe. Cleary 2, exhausted on a rock, resting on thorns, going into a house but not seeing the wife is not a good sign. Woo. He is surrounded by rocks and leaning on thorny shrubs. He enters his house and does not find his wife. Foreboding. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, he lays hold of thorns. This is suggested by the position of the line above and the dynamic line. To enter one's palace and not see one's wife is inauspicious. Wilhelm/Baines, he rests on a hard line. This bodes misfortune. Blofeld, the firm line just below him. His not finding his wife symbolizes bad luck. Ritzmo/Karcher, riding a solid indeed. What? Not auspicious indeed. Cleary 2, you riding a solid indeed? Yeah, man. Totally rode the solid indeed. Cleary 2, not seeing the wife is not a good sign. Woo, an unfortunate omen. Leg. For a full explanation of the third line, Chu Hsi refers the reader to what Confucius said on it. If one be distressed by what need not distress him, his name is sure to be disgraced. If he lay hold on what he should not touch, his life is sure to be imperiled. In disgrace and danger, his death will soon come. Is it possible for him in such circumstances to see his wife? The Konghasi editors say here, the subjects of the three magnetic lines, 1, 3, and 6, are all unable to cope correctly with the oppression of their circumstances. The first is at the bottom, sitting and distressed. The third line, able either to advance or retreat, advances and is distressed. Wounded abroad, he returns to his family and finds no one to receive him. A graphic portrayal of the results of reckless action. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. The man is indecisively unable to deal with adversity and is oppressed by something which should not oppress him. He leans on things like thorns and thistles, which are hazardous yet cannot support him. Wing. You allow yourself to become oppressed by things that are not oppressive. You put your faith in things that cannot support you. You are unable to see your priorities, although they are obvious. This brings misfortune. Editor. This line does not lend itself to the usual gender symbolism. The rock is often a symbol of eternity and is seen as a dwelling place for spiritual beings, hence a transcendental reality or eternal verity. In fairy tales, a barrier of thorns is often created by an evil witch or other negative magnetic force, the feminine principle in its destructive aspect. This barrier is usually what separates the hero from the sleeping maiden, his unconscious anima or feminine soul. A house or palace is the whole psyche. In my Father's house are many mansions, John 14:2. The wife, of course, is the contrasexual correlate. In a man, the anima or emotional feeling component of his psyche. A woman receiving this line should just reverse the symbolism and see it as the animus or logical thinking component of her psyche. Putting all these symbols together, we receive an image of a situation which is somehow contrary to the laws of nature. Both the frowning rock, yang, and the thorns, yin, are opposed to the situation, so no union can possibly take place. He does not see his wife. If this is the only changing line, the new hexagram created is number 28, critical mass, with a corresponding line which indicates a position of extreme vulnerability to danger. This line is an unambiguous warning that your situation is untenable. Both dynamic and magnetic forces are against you. Ritzmo/Karcher translate pitfall as leads away from the experience of meaning, stuck and exposed to danger, unable to take in the situation. Flow of life and spirit is blocked. Wilhelm alludes to imminent death, which of course should be interpreted symbolically in most cases. Jesus. Deuteronomy 32:15, he disowned the God who made him, dishonored the rock, his salvation. Changing line 3 is summed up in two succinct definitions, A and B. A, you are out of touch with reality, resisting a situation that you should accept. And B, your ego indulgence in illusion prevents psychic unity. Your action, intention, or attitude is in opposition to psychic unification. And changing line 5. The fifth line dynamic shows its subject with his nose and feet cut off. He is straightened by his ministers in their scarlet knee covers. He is leisurely in his movements, however, and is satisfied. It will be well for him to be as sincere as in sacrificing to spiritual beings. Wilhelm/Baines, his nose and feet are cut off, oppression at the hands of the man with the purple knee bands. Joy comes softly. It furthers one to make offerings and libations. Blofeld, his nose and feet are chopped off owing to difficulties with a vermilion sash wearer, man of high rank, but joy may come in time. It is advisable to offer sacrifice. It is very sure that we shall have to suffer bitterly. The joy to come is less certain, but may be assured by our making a suitable sacrifice. So that is quite important. Commentary. Confucius/Legge, his aim has not yet been gained. Satisfied leisure means his position is central and his virtue is correct. Sincere sacrifice means he thereby receives blessings. Wilhelm/Baines, he does not yet attain his will. The line is straight and central. Thus one attains good fortune. Blofeld, what we will now will not come to pass. The correct position of the line, sacrifice in order to ensure good fortune. Ritzema/Karcher, purpose not yet acquired indeed, using centering, straightening indeed, acquiescing in blessing indeed. Clary 2, the aim is not yet attained, taking a balanced course, one receives blessings. Wu, his wishes have not been fulfilled, he is straightforward, he will receive blessings. Legge, the fifth line is repressed by the sixth, yet urged on by the fourth. He is thus wounded from above and below, especially the minister in the fourth line with his scarlet knee covers. But the upper trigram symbolizes cheerfulness, and this indicates that he gets by notwithstanding his difficulties. His sincerity helps get him through also. Notes and paraphrases Sue. The man's good intentions to help mankind are obstructed from above and below, especially by the bureaucrats. Gradually, the situation improves. In the meantime, all he can do is to maintain inner composure, as in offering sacrifices to heaven. Wing, there exists a frustrating lack of information within your milieu. Bureaucracy stands in the way of progress. Those who need help are stranded. All you can do is maintain your composure until things take a promised turn for the better. Editor, the situation of line 5 is between a rock and a hard place. The nose symbolizes intuition. To have the nose cut off suggests that we have no insight into our situation. When our feet are cut off, we don't have a leg to stand on, and our foundation is undermined. Psychologically, the symbolism implies that the stress of the position is caused by a higher power, the self. If so, the stress is necessary to effect an inner transformation of some sort. We are asked to sacrifice our need to understand the incomprehensible and submit to the requirements of the time. This line changes the hexagram to number 40, liberation, suggesting that through submission to oppression, one eventually attains freedom. A quote by Gareth Knight in Kabbalistic Symbolism, the death of the physical body is one of the supremer forms of the principle of crucifixion. One which equals it is the death of initiation. This is the comparatively high initiation where the whole life is dedicated to the service of the spirit. And the initiate, instead of dying for a principle, lives out his life in accordance with the principle. And this can be a far harder thing. The great work comes first, whatever the cost. James DeCorn breaks down changing line 5 into two succinct definitions, A and B. A, without intuition, you have no power base. Submit to the lessons that a restricted situation offers you. Sacrifice your ego impulses. And B, you are oppressed by powers outside of your awareness. For the benefit of the work, sacrifice your autonomy and your need to understand and attain eventual liberation. Heavy. Next, we will look at Browne Walker's I Ching or Book of Changes, a guide to life's turning points. Primary hexagram 47. After this, we will find out our secret hexagram, which is the hidden influence behind the situation, and then sum up the readings, and then get a chapter or two from the Tao Te Ching and close it out. 47, Kun, oppression, exhaustion, and an unavoidable time of adversity. Quiet strength ensures a later success. It is a time of oppression and exhaustion. None of us escape such moments. They are simply a part of living. By meeting them in the correct spirit and cheerfully bending instead of breaking, you weather the adversity and meet with success at a later time. Inferior elements, either in one's life, oneself, another, or the larger world, interfere now to restrain the superior person. It is foolish to fight against the restraint. Success is simply not possible now. Rid yourself of the desire to progress and return to neutrality and acceptance. The stubborn pursuit of results will bring misfortune. With others, quietness and equanimity are the watchwords of the moment. Say little and say it gently. A similar reticence and gentleness should be applied to yourself. Do not lapse into impatience or mistrust of the deity. Accept that the creative often works in a way that we cannot see or understand. We got the creative hexagram 1 in our last reading. A feeling of despair or depression is a sign that you are holding a false belief. To perpetuate an untruth about yourself, another, or the sage is to block your own happiness. Root out and remove any idea or attitude which causes negative feelings. By opening your mind, quieting your heart, and calmly holding to proper principles, you make it possible for the creative to eliminate the oppression that currently exists. Sounds like that dark night of the soul business. And an appealing to the higher power being necessary. Our supporting hexagram next is hexagram 42, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. E, or increase. Powerful improvements are underway. The coming of the hexagram E signifies a period of increase when the power of heaven descends to surround and invigorate our lives. That would probably be a reason why the trigram thunder, Benabel Wen said that it was the answer and the way to get past a blockade, is how she put it. And the blockade being that of hexagram 47. So this supporting hexagram is thunder beneath wind, and the sound of wind enhances thunder. So already in our supporting hexagram, we have kind of like the antidote to the blockade and the issues. As well as if we appeal to a higher power or make sacrifice of some sort. Those are like the highest suggested things. So I would really listen closely to this hexagram as like an antidote. The coming of the hexagram E signifies a period of increase when the power of heaven descends to surround and invigorate our lives. Like all phases, this too will come to an end. But if we make hay while the sun shines, tremendous progress can be made at this time. It is in the nature of human beings to relax and become careless when things begin to go well. The I Ching teaches us that we should not do this if we desire the fullest blessings of the beneficial hour. Indeed, our rewards are multiplied if we increase our conscientiousness in auspicious times, rather than decrease it. There are two ways in which the I Ching especially encourages us to do this. Our first task is to make sacrifices for others. In all of your interactions now, embody generosity in thought and action. Forgive what is inferior in others and seek out the good. By giving, encouraging, and assisting, you will draw the superior person in everyone into devoted action. Your second task in this time of increase is to go on strengthening yourself as thunder and wind strengthen each other. This means that if you see something good in another, you imitate it. And when you discover something inferior in yourself, you eliminate it. These simple practices, if continued conscientiously over time, will improve your character and fortunes immeasurably. Through service and self-improvement, you assure yourself of great progress in the days ahead. And our changing lines, put a pin in the map to say you are here, or here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Our cat Binks, this black cat, ate a bluebird yesterday. I didn't hear it, but when I woke up, there was everything but the bluebird on the ground, mainly blue feathers. It's brutal. The guy's insane. I had to save his life one time. He was choking on some dead animal. He's our hunter cat, a killer. And I had to clear his throat. It was blockading his throat, and I had to turn him upside down and kind of squeeze his chest, and he was couldn't take breaths in very well, so I had to blow in his face to get air. Well, it's the third Hanuman incense we're going into now. I didn't know, but that is something that is recommended in approaching the Oracle and consulting the I Ching, is burning incense, and I've just done that to kind of make it this ritual-like experience. And so that, I don't know, that's kind of like a sacrifice, right? Sort of. Been doing that. You know, whatever keeps your nose and legs would be ideal. All right. 3 incense sticks. Obviously, their sacrifice is going to have to be something that makes sense for each individual situation. Do we read about the changing lines and what they meant? Right? We're going into changing line 3 and 5. Yeah, we talked all about 42. Yeah. Okay, so, and then I think we just read the whole stuff about changing lines, what they mean, put a pin in the map, all that stuff. So, changing line 3 of Hexagram 47. Restless effort undermines one's interests. It is unwise to charge repeatedly at a closed door. Withdraw into stillness and accept both the challenges and the blessings of the day. And changing line 5. Even a superior person is oppressed now. Modesty and reliance on quiet truth preserve you in this difficult hour. Next, we will get the secret hexagram, which is the hidden influence behind the situation. To get the secret hexagram, you combine the second, third, and fourth lines of our primary hexagram with the third, fourth, and fifth lines of our supporting hexagram. And these ones are going to be the bottom trigram, and these will be the top. So that would be solid, broken, solid, which would be Li, fire, and light, beneath solid, because this is the supporting hexagram now, and so this changes. Solid, broken. Li, fire, and light beneath. What did we say here? Yep. Beneath solid, solid, broken.
dewy Laker marsh. Leaf, fire, and light beneath dewy Laker marsh give us a secret hexagram of 49. Hexagram 49, our secret hexagram, which is the hidden influence behind the situation, in Lu I-ming's Taoist Ching is called revolution, refining personal desires to become unselfish. It highlighted getting rid of selfish desires and ego things in both of the changing lines from the perspective of, I think it was Lu I-ming and a few others, at least insinuated that was the case. 49, revolution. I'll show you. Refining personal desires to become unselfish. All right. We will read first from Browne Walker. Somebody start barking spiders. Browne Walker. Jesus. Revolution 49. I thought that's what it is. Yeah. Secret hexagram, hidden influence behind the situation, kind of like tarot readers say bottom of the deck energy. Browne Walker calls ko, or revolution. Devotion to truth enables a revolution. The hexagram ko announces the arrival of a time of revolution. A set of conditions, internal or external, or both, is ready to pass away in favor of a more beneficial situation. What enables this transformation is your conscious and vigorous adherence to correct thought and behavior. No revolution in outer things is possible without a prior revolution in one's inner way of being. Whatever change you aspire to in your affairs must be preceded by a change in heart. An active deepening and strengthening of your resolve to meet every event with equanimity, detachment, and innocent goodwill. When this spiritual poise is achieved within, magnificent things are possible without. The revolutions of others are enabled also when we refine the fire of goodness and truth inside ourselves. Since commitment to higher things travels outward in powerful waves from the superior person, and all those around are affected by this. Indisputably, to lead one's inner self to truth and peace is to lead the outer world to truth and peace. A beneficial revolution is assured to one who takes this path now. Dedication to inner peace and truth. And Venabelle Wen. And then, just because Lu I-ming is right there with the alchemy of the situation, we're going to at least get his as well. G, revolution, in Venabelle Wen. The Oracle. Revolution to rectify injustice begins with revolution of the heart. First, change inner misalignments before seeking a transformation of others. It is your responsibility to affirm that a call for change is for the better, and not for a different form of the same. Thus, true change comes when you are aligned with heaven's will. What you seek requires momentum, and to drum up that momentum, live and abide by higher principles. Those who see you embody the higher principles will be attracted to you, and you will gain momentum. Having that majority support is the authority you need for a just revolution. A leather hide born of the magnificent fire, a change, to remove, to expel, reform. The talons of the bird cling to its offspring. Prosperity and material gains, a great position of advantage. Disappointments vanish, an auspicious omen. At the heart and center is a magnificent fire. The methods to be employed are like the art of tanning a leather hide. The sage must set the calendar and timing of events to come. Inspire confidence. When the people see that you have a vision, a plan, and the talent to carry forth that plan, they will be joyful and loyal. Social change. The leather hide is a metaphor for social change. It signifies removing or expelling an old and installing a new. It signifies removing or expelling an old and installing a new. Thus, hexagram 49 is often interpreted as prognostication of reform or revolution. There are political or social implications. Hexagram 49 expresses the passing of the mandate of heaven. The current ruler has violated the moral obligation to care for the people. Thus, the right to revolt is granted to the people, and through it, the new Son of Heaven will be revealed. Wowza. And I-ming's Taoist I Ching. Secret hexagram, hidden influence behind the situation. Revolution. In revolution, the sun of the self is truth. This is creative, developmental, fruitful, and perfect. Regret vanishes. Explanation. Revolution means riddance. The reason for riddance is obsolescence. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is lake, joyous, and below is fire, luminous. Joy is based on illumination, while illumination controls joy. In joy, there should be no delusion. In illumination, there should be no obscurity. Producing joy from within illumination, having illumination within joy, therefore it is called revolution. In the image of the hexagram, lake is metal associated with the west, fire is the fire associated with the south, refining metal by fire. When metal meets fire, it produces brightness and is melted down. When fire meets metal, it goes into storage and returns to the root. This too is the meaning of revolution. This hexagram represents refining yin energy. It follows on the previous hexagram, exhaustion. In exhaustion, joy is produced, because he skips hexagrams, he does the odds and the evens. So that's interesting. Our primary hexagram is exhaustion, 47. It follows on the previous hexagram, exhaustion. In exhaustion, joy is produced from the midst of danger. This is how to take the true yang in water to get out of danger. However, even if you can take the true yang in water, if you cannot restore the true yin in fire, the gold elixir will not crystallize, and you will not attain joy. So this path of producing joy from within illumination is indispensable. Producing joy from within illumination is the working of refining yin energy. Refining yin energy means refining one's own personal desires to become unselfish. Humans are the worst. Right? Humans are the most conscious of beings, born with the true energy of the patterns of yin and yang, of heaven and earth. When they are first born, they unconsciously follow the laws of the Lord, completely good, with no evil. The true essence is bright and clear, the open awareness unobscured. Emotions do not stick in their hearts. Wealth and poverty do not disturb their minds. Wild beasts cannot harm them. Weapons cannot get at them. Water and fire cannot overcome them. Life and death cannot burden them. When hungry, they simply eat. When cold, they just put on clothes. Without thought or reflection, their capacity is originally clear. Then, when people reach the age of 16, yang culminates, producing yin. As they deal with things based on acquired conditioning, they develop characteristic temperaments and intellectual knowledge. At this point, only sages of superior wisdom granted by nature, when they are not opposing nature in the primal state, and when they serve nature in the temporal state, are able to preserve primal reality and not be damaged by acquired conditioning. Among mediocre and lesser people, rare are they who are not ruled and manipulated by acquired conditioning. After this, 100 anxieties confuse their minds, myriad affairs belabor their bodies. They take the artificial to be real. abandon the true and enter the false. As the days and years go by, they become estranged by habit from what is close by nature, and the quality of clarity is damaged. The new piles up and becomes old. The pure becomes defiled. This is where the pollution of obsolescence and defilement comes from. If we look into the source of the pollution of obsolescence, stagnation, and defilement, we see it all comes from having a self. Once one has a self, an ego, the mind of Tao is obscured and the human mentality arises. Conscious of what one should not be conscious of, enjoying what one should not enjoy, one goes to any lengths following personal desires. So revolution simply means overthrowing the ignorance of the self to restore illumination. And these are all lowercase. Often he'll use the self capitalized, or at least James de Corn does. Here they're talking about the ego, the lowercase self. But if one wants to overthrow the ignorance of the self, it is necessary that the self first be understood. Once the self is understood, one can be sincere in revolution, and the ignorance of the self can be overthrown. Therefore, in the path of revolution, the sun of the self is truth. The sun is an image of illumination, understanding. Truth means sincerity. If one does not understand, one cannot be sincere. If one can understand, one will be sincere. With understanding and sincerity, as the first thought is truthful, one will be able to overthrow and revolutionize the self. Therefore, revolution contains a path of creativity and development. However, though revolution is creative and developmental, it is necessary that revolution be correct. If right and wrong are not differentiated and true and false are not distinguished, but all are overthrown together, and one enters into nihilistic quietism, this is not correct, and so is not fruitful. And not being fruitful, it is not creative or developmental. Only by correct revolution, conquering the ego and returning to propriety, getting rid of falsehood and maintaining truthfulness, burning away all the pollution of conditioning and bringing to light the true essence of the primal unified awareness, reaching this state, returning to the fundamental, integrating with natural principle, pure and clean without flaw, can the regret of having a self vanish. This path is not hard to know. What is hard is to carry it out. It is simply a matter of people being able to be sincere in revolution. In the commentary section of 49, change. Sometimes the name is a little different in the commentary section for some reason. Lake above, fire below. There is fire in a lake, changing. Thus do superior people make a calendar and clarify the seasons. Change is transformation. Lee, fire and light beneath, dewy lake or marsh. Okay, yeah, that's the secret. Change is transformation. Above is lake, below is fire. There is fire in a lake. A lake is wet, fire is hot. If there is too much moisture, fire will dry it up. If there is too much heat, moisture will dampen it down. When moisture and fire are in the same place, the wetness and heat balance each other. This is the image of change. What superior people see in this is that as people establish their careers in the world, when they cannot achieve proper adjustment based on actualities and cannot adapt to the times, it is because they do not understand the principle of change of the celestial Tao and the seasons of advance and withdrawal of yin and yang. Therefore, superior people divide the various seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter with their 24 energies and 72 periods, and thus make a calendar to show that the operation of the energies of the 5 elements each has its own time, to enable people to obey heaven and accord with the time, changing any element that is excessive so that it returns to correct balance. Heaven has its times of operation. People have times when they should act. As the time changes, the way changes. So the way of change is the way of going along with the time. When one acts appropriately When one acts appropriately in concert with the time, action and inaction, preservation and elimination, will not lose their proper balance. This too is one kind of celestial practice. And maybe just a hint of James de Corn here. Not trying to go too crazy here, but he calls 49 metamorphosis, secret hexagram, hidden influence behind the situation. Other titles: revolution or revolutions, transformation, skinning, the bridle, the symbol of change, molting. The last reading, the embryo, the spiritual embryo had been created, and it was waiting a time of alchemy, a time of transmutation or molting. And the title of this is, one of the titles is Molt, or Metamorphosis. Cut off, changing, radical change, overthrowing. So the difficulty in this time, it said that the 47, the blockade, it was auspicious for the eminent one, or the superior person, or the great person. But not for most people. And the most people there would likely be pointing to like the concept of the ego. So this may be a time coming up that's really not great for the ego. But if one can hold to the ideals of the sage, or the superior person, or the higher self in each one of us, that actually is a transformative time and helps with the process. If you're straightened by circumstances, that's sometimes the best way to get rid of that lingering ego shit that wants to make everything about me, instead of realizing, hey, there's more going on here than that. And I think it's two extremes. You either are in such a tough situation that kind of refines it out of you like a furnace, or you get everything you want and realize that it doesn't make you happy anyway, so you're back to the drawing board. So that's kind of like the two extremes, I imagine. But in this instance, it sounds like a tough one. Radical change, overthrowing, judgment, leg. Metamorphosis is believed in only after it has been accomplished. Firm correctness abolishes regret and brings successful progress. Wilhelm Sachsbane's Revolution. On your own day you are believed, supreme success, furthering through perseverance, remorse disappears. Blofeld, revolution, not before the day of its completion will men have faith in it. Sublime success, determination in a righteous course brings reward, regret vanishes. Very often this means renovation, as of character, etc., but it may also mean exactly what it says. Confucius, though he regarded loyalty to the ruler as one of the highest virtues, recognized that evil men forfeit their right to rule by their excesses, and it is probable that this notion antedates him by many centuries. You know? Rismo/Carter, skinning. Before zenith sun, thereupon conforming, spring growing, harvesting trial, repenting extinguished. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of stripping away a protective cover. It emphasizes that radically changing and renewing the way you present yourself is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary 1, in revolution, the sun of the self is truth. This is creative, developmental, fruitful, and perfect. Regret vanishes. In old texts, when it says that the alchemical elixir is in people, but first they have to refine the self and wait for the proper time, this means to make a radical purge of all the pollution of past influences and not let any flaws remain in the heart. Wu, reform indicates that revolution will become credible when the time is ripe. In this way, it is great and pervasive and advantageous to be persevering. Regret will disappear. Image. Leg. A fire in the marsh, the image of metamorphosis. The superior man synchronizes his astronomical calculations to clarify the times and seasons. Wilhelm/Baines, fire in the lake, the image of revolution. Thus, the superior man sets the calendar in order and makes the seasons clear. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes fire rising from a marshy lake. The superior man regulates the calendar and thus ensures that men are clear about times and seasons. Ritzema/Karcher, marsh centering, possessing fire, skinning. A Chun-Tzu or chief son or superior person uses regulating time reckoning to brighten the seasons. Wu, there is fire below the marsh, this is reform. Thus the Chun-Tzu or chief son or superior person is inspired to develop a calendrical system for keeping time. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, in metamorphosis, water and fire extinguish each other. When two daughters with opposing viewpoints live together, change is inevitable. But after the change is accomplished, faith is accorded to. Clarity brings good cheer and progress through what is correct. When a transformation is properly accomplished, all occasion for regret disappears. Heaven and earth undergo their changes, and the four seasons complete their functions. The rulers of old transformed the state in accordance with the will of heaven and in response to the wishes of men. Great indeed is what takes place in a time of change. Leg, the written character translated as metamorphosis is used here in the sense of changing. Originally used for the skin of an animal or bird, it received the significance of changing at a very early time. The figure deals with the subject of changes which are called for in the state of the country. The necessity for change is recognized, and hints are given as to the spirit and manner in which they should be brought about. The judgment assumes that change is viewed by people generally with suspicion and dislike, and therefore should not be made hastily. This can refer to inner complexes, habits, etc. When the necessity for change has been proven beforehand and subsequently carried out with firm correctness, then the issue will turn out satisfactorily. The lower trigram is the symbol of fire for fire and the upper for water. Water extinguishes fire and fire dries up water. Each changes the other. The lower trigram is also the second daughter and the upper is the youngest daughter. In the scheme of the trigrams, these two are seen to be mutually incompatible. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Hidden within its cocoon, the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Who would believe it until the metamorphosis was complete? The superior man recognizes that celestial sequences create changes only when they are due. He therefore acts in accordance with the requirements of the times. The 49th hexagram makes an analogy between the natural metamorphosis of animal pelts and the proper way to regard radical changes in government. Lines 1, 5, and 6 all refer to skin, and 2, 3, and 4 refer to politics. The general idea is that radical transformations occur at their own natural pace. They cannot be successfully forced any more than eggs can be made to hatch before their time. The image makes this point in its reference to the celestial correlation of the seasons. A quote from Ecclesiastes 3, 1-2, "There is a time for everything, a time for every occupation under heaven, a time for giving birth, a time for dying, a time for planting, a time for uprooting what has been planted," etc. Once one assumes conscious responsibility for the work, there comes a long and indefinite period in which one labors unceasingly without any visible results at all. Dream images and I Ching meditations will indicate that progress is being made, but the ego's life in space-time consists of seemingly fruitless labor in the service of a transcendental ideal. This is a universal experience. It happens to everyone who undertakes the work. In the Western mystery tradition, it is known as the dark night of the soul. That's what I was saying it felt like 47 was. Hexagram 47, our primary hexagram. Blockade, or exhaustion. See hexagram number 36 for further insights into this unavoidable phenomenon. So I guess he thinks 36 embodies that dark night of the soul, or at least references that in that section if you want to look. Quote from R. Wang in the Kabbalistic Tarot, "The personality undergoes a willful death, surrendering everything that it believes itself to be. Most difficult is that this total surrender of life, this initiatory sacrifice, must precede the experience of cosmic awareness. One is required to give up the totality of one's being, one's very life, in relative darkness, yet in the faith that there will be a resurrection into the light." So there's more to read, but I will say that what I talked about the last reading about getting primary hexagram 1, heaven, or what James de Corn said could be a possible title of it, was Kundalini. And then we talked about in the changing lines, like blockage being hampered. And I was referencing that to being like that rising energy being blocked by maybe ego or trauma kind of like responses in the body. We're going through a metamorphosis or a transformation. This molting is what's taking place here. So that being the context, it helps be able to get one through adverse circumstances when one knows that what's happening is that the spiritual embryo has taken form and is waiting for transmutation or molting, is what we got in the last reading. Here, this transformation is the hidden influence behind the situation, the secret hexagram. It's this molting that's taking place. But to do that requires this situation where the ego is so incredibly messed with. The nose is cut off. That's like the sense of intuition. Your intuition and being able to sense what's going on eliminated. And the feet being cut off. So that's like your grounding and support. You don't have a leg to stand on, so you feel like you're not grounded. A lot of sensations happen in the body with a Kundalini-like event, and sometimes, from what I know about it, that can get blocked in various areas. I had a situation myself where it felt like pressure was building right here, and it was just like kind of in my eyes and stuff for a long time. And I did a ritual. I have this whole video where I talked about it way back, but it allowed me, because I kind of like gave myself it's like I work energy related, and I kind of just sense what's effectively doing something for my own nervous system and what kind of enhances things and how much pressure I'm feeling I can handle. And I really try and push things often to like a lot of pressure. But I did this ritual where basically was able to give myself a permission slip of sorts to have that kind of like ego transition period where you're scared of a thing occurring that you don't know what's going to happen afterwards, but you don't have a choice at a certain point. Like the pressure's building, the nose is cut off, the legs are cut off, you're basically blockaded in. And the idea in the fifth line, changing line of our primary hexagram, had to do with that being done from bureaucracy and things like that. So even in a psychological type sense, you can have your own inner bureaucracy about things going on in your body and your impression of what society, and we're largely made up by all these voices in our head from our upbringing, and our parents and society at large shapes that. And this whole process is about going back before all that conditioning took place. And so this conditioning is like bureaucracy, and it rises up and it tries to stop things because it's not appropriate, or how am I going to fit in if like I have this weird fucking orgasmic like event of uncontrollable energy that I don't know what to do with. Like, how does that fit into regular life? Like, am I going to keep my job and that's happening? All of those situations to consider. But also having the context of the greater view of this and the time that we're in is that 2 readings ago, there was indication of Kundalini. It talked about Kundalini in one of the hexagrams. I can't remember the details. And then the last hexagram, it was the primary hexagram, or the last reading, the primary hexagram, one of the titles for it could have been Kundalini, which was just one, heaven, or the dynamic. And it talked about a dragon, and the dragon in that instance was one of the changing lines that had the decision of whether remaining in the abyss or bursting out of the abyss. And the idea was that it could be either going into a life of maybe relative obscurity but continuing to learn, and that was an absolutely acceptable and in the end would be lead to success way to do things. And the other was going into a life of public service is one of the ways you could describe it. And this was coming out of the abyss, and that would also be just as acceptable as the other. And so if we're talking Kundalini here and that kind of thing, I'm no expert, but I would suggest that what that might mean is that each person needs to sense out where they're at in that whole thing and what the pressure of the time is doing and how it feels like there's just so much buildup of energy. And you don't know how to handle that in a way that's balanced. One of the things that was essential here, where it was talking about how to get through the difficulties of the changing lines, was through sacrifice, but another had to do with remaining balanced. And so that's essential. But yeah, it should be, going back to that previous reading, something that each person decides on their own. And we're talking about this dragon, whether it remains in the abyss or jumps out of the abyss. So that's a sensitive thing. I brought up my lower back and not being sensitive and being more sensitive in that area so that I feel the sensations in my body and my inner state of whether I'm frustrated or not, and that affecting that, and I'm being able to sense that a lot more. That's kind of that feel that you have in your body with that kind of experience, and it can be a bit overwhelming. And so each person should really approach that situation with the idea that no situation is exactly the same, and that one of the best ways to gauge is just your own sense of what's happening and trying to mediate that process as best as you possibly can. I would turn you to Igor Kufiev. I could probably link his channel in the description box below. He is a very reputable source when it comes to all things Kundalini. I read from his book a few readings ago, Kundalini, the Goddess. Anyway, that I would recommend. And if we're talking about not just for the individual, but society at large, well, one of the things James DeCorn brought out was that you can't really affect great change externally without that inner change internally. So it could be a process here where that embryo has taken form, yes, and now the hidden influence behind this whole situation of the ego going through a really tough time, or most people, whereas for the eminent one or the superior person, it was an auspicious situation. So being in a confinement or exhaustion, what do you do in those situations? How do you continue the work even through that? Most people give up. How do you continue it? And how do you take advantage of something where most people, they get a little success and they just party or just celebrate? Whereas in the suggestion here is that while the time is ripe for advancement, that we take advantage of that. So this would be a good time to figure out that sensitivity inside our bodies, how we could use that rising energy to benefit ourselves the best way possible, and at the very least, not allow it to damage us. So that being said, a balance is necessary in society, and for tense, awful, violent situations to not get worse, and if possible, this inner transformation that could potentially happen on a large scale, it's not unheard of, to affect, maybe not immediately, but that echoes out. Anything that happens in the collective unconscious changes the wider reality. And if we don't each look at our own responsibility and influence in that, and how each and every one of us play a part of it, we can all be swept along by a societal tide that doesn't really correlate with the Tao. It's just man-made. It's like left brain produced. It's like a boxes and stuff. We build these buildings out of boxes, and you don't see boxes and stuff in nature, right? So it's not even really, it's just really, really left brain oriented. How do we allow our intuition, even though we've had our nose cut off and all that stuff? What are the kind of things we can help to get a handle on our own inner state and how that correlates with the time and what that means about where the time's flowing versus what society's doing? And how do we promote that sensing of those really sensitive inner sensations in our own being, and how to remain balanced? Even though there's a lot of energy, it becomes even more important to remain balanced, and even more important to keep a steady hand on the steering wheel of your vessel, and know that when the waves are going crazy and stuff, that's like, we can't only lean on our outward world for balance. Clearly that cannot be done right now. If there's any time to say that, now would be one of those times at the very least. But for most of us, this is, in our lives, the most, to ahead we've ever been. And so we need to look at the world clearly, and when it forces us into our inner world, and our inner world is a fucking mess, then what do? Recommendation here is lean on the sage, that concept, and that if that's not developed enough in oneself, where one feels safe, having broken out of those shells into a wider and wider and wider and wider space, to the concept of the sage of being just everything, like that's just complete connection with the Tao. The Tao and the sage are one, right? They're harmonized. If that isn't something one senses oneself, then what is the best example you have? What's your envisioning of this sage-like beingness that you could use as an example to lend you the balance, until that can be something that is able to allow you to become not just the most people or petty person, but the eminent one, or the sage, or the superior person, in the situation where most people are hampered, and it's very inauspicious for them to go through primary hexagram 47 exhaustion. But for the sage or the eminent one, it's I'm gonna plug this in and keep going here. It's auspicious, and they can continue to grow and use it to transmute this embryo that has been newly created, this spiritual embryo that's been newly created,